How's it going, YouTube? Got FourthStarTCG here, and a little bit of a different style of video today. Today we are going to be going over some of the newly revealed cards from SM2, because a lot of these cards are cards that I feel are incredibly good, and I cannot wait to discuss how these cards will affect the metagame, and what type of decks that I see these cards being played in. So, I mean, there are a couple, like, interesting stuff here, like they've got Salazzle, some Alolan Sandslash, which is pretty much this Mimikyu, really not much there. So I won't be going over all of the cards, but I will be going over most of the GXs. The first card I want to go over is Turtonator GX. This card, I think a lot of these GX cards seem underwhelming at first, but then when you look at them again, they are just absolutely fantastic. I think all of these GX cards are incredibly good and will sort of define the metagame from here on out, and I think that's what Pokemon is trying to do, trying to move away from EXs and move towards the GX mechanic. So Turtonator GX, we'll move this over here so you guys get a nice view of the card and of the text. So for just a double color, first, this thing has 190 HP. This is just insane that we have basic cards with 190 HP. We've seen this before with Zygarde EX, but that was the only Pokemon that was basic with 190 HP, I believe. So this was nuts. Turtonator GX, first attack for just a double colorless, does 20 damage, but if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack during your opponent's next turn, put 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Now this is incredibly important because it's sort of like a souped up bursting balloon, and there's no way for your opponent to get out of this by doing anything themselves other than, for example, Lysandering something else up, or yeah, so it's not specific to, like, if your opponent's active Pokemon damages this. No, it's just straight anything on your opponent's side that attacks, you put 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. You either pair this with Bursting Balloon to, what is that, 140 damage if you attack into Turtonator the next turn from Trap Shell and Bursting Balloon, if you were to put Bursting Balloon on this, but I think that's just nuts. So this attack is very, very good. You pair it with either Bursting Balloon to increase the damage, you can pair it with Fighting Fury Belt as it's a basic in order to increase its HP and its attack just by a little bit. I see this fitting into a lot of Volcanion decks. I mean, its other attacks, I guess we'll go over those before we talk about sort of metagame effects. For a 2 fire and a colorless 3 energy, you're almost always going to be using 3 fire. Crimson Flame does 160 damage and you discard 2 fire energy attached to this Pokemon. It's okay. I mean, I guess it's similar to Lapras GX. They both do 160 for 3. It's not bad, but I mean, you have Burning Energy, you can attach right back, but that would kind of invalidate it in a Volcanion build, as Volcanion would not play Bursting Energy, or goodness, I'm getting everything, Burning Energy, Bursting Balloon and Burning Energy, and its GX attack is fairly good. Nitro Tank GX, you attach 5 fire energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way you like. I think it's a lot difficult. It's not as good as Solgaleo, obviously. You're attaching energy from the discard to your Pokemon. Right now, when we don't have Battle Compressor in the format, if we had Battle Compressor, this would just be God tier. But we don't, so you're going to have to discard your Fire Energy with Ultra Ball, Professor Sycamore. It's going to be very difficult to get 5 in the discard. Yeah, so this is just going to be very difficult to get this to work. But metagame effects, this is going to be played, I think, in almost every Volcanion EX deck. Trap Shell can set you up for Trap Shell can help you if you're having trouble getting set up. Trap Shell that can just stall for a while. They're not going to want to attack into this Turtonator. It's going to force your opponent to make plays. It's sort of like a souped up Bursting Balloon, but you can have a tool on it, and it's, yeah. So I think Turtonator GX is very good. We'll see it in Volcanion. They can, it's basic, so Steam Up will increase its damage. I see this maybe, I mean, Volcanion is already good, but I mean, its Volcanic Heat is very good. You might see this being used maybe like a 1 or 2 of in Volcanion decks for this second attack, just as it does more damage and discarding the energy, and it's not, you can get it back with Baby Volcanion if you have to. But yeah, Volcanion's idea pretty much is to stream though, so not really sure where this will fit in. I know it will be played in Volcanion decks. I think it's a very good card. And by like good card, like there's some stuff like Espeon GX which really doesn't fit in a lot of decks. Other things such as Gumshoes GX, which is just not good. Primarina GX, like not good. These are a class above the GXs that we first saw. Second GX card I want to go over is Tapu Koko GX. Tapu Koko GX. A lot of people have been kind of saying this card is mediocre, and I'm not so sure I agree with them. I think this card will be very good. The reason being is that it has so many different ways of playing. So we'll go over everything that is on the card first. 170 HP, a little bit low for a GX, but I mean, this card is very good. So something's got to be a little underwhelming, and the only underwhelming thing is HP, which we can modulate with any type of. You can increase it with Fighting Fury Belt, throw that up to 210 HP. You want to play Aether Conservation Area or Rough Seas, you can do that. I would personally play Aether Conservation Area as it reduces damage. Healing damage is good, but reducing damage, like for example, if an attack will do 170 damage to Tapu Koko GX, healing after the fact doesn't mean anything, where if you can reduce that damage beforehand, that's better. So that's why I think Aether Conservation Area should probably be played, and we'll go over that. We'll go over that stadium later. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but its ability is very similar to what we saw with Dragonite EX and Furious Fists. Once during your turn, before you attack, when you play this card from your hand onto your bench, you may move any number of lightning energy attached to your Pokemon to this Pokemon. If you move any energy, switch this Pokemon with your active Pokemon. Oops, look like apologies for that little noise there. Just gotta. So I think this is going to be a fantastic ability. I'm gonna go over all of its attacks before I talk about how I see the ability working. Sky Claw for 3 energy does 130 damage, fairly standard, and Tapu Thunder GX does 50 damage times the number of energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. Your opponent will more likely than not have more than 4 energy in play, 4 or more, so you're going to be hitting 200. This is a nuke GX attack right here. This is just going to do a lot of damage, and it's going to one-shot pretty much anything you go up against. And it's got no weakness, no resistance, and a retreat cost of 2. I see this card being just fantastic. If we ever get, I really doubt we'll see Super Scoop Up reprinted, but if we get something like AZ, especially with Serena in the format, I'm really not sure if we'll get something that will pick up Pokemon. But even so, this is fairly good. Very good. I see this being played in, for example, a Magnezone Raikou deck that just needed something that hit a little harder. You put all that energy on Raikou, and it can hit for a lot of damage, but it's very difficult. You throw this in, you throw down some energy, you can Arrow Trail as soon as you put Tapu Koko into play, and then you can get it charged up immediately. You're hitting for 130 off the bat. You throw a Choice Band down on this thing. It's a new card which does, I think it's 30 extra damage to the opposing GX or EX, and you can attach it to anything, I believe. So you throw a Choice Band onto this thing, which will be in the format by the time Tapu Koko comes in. You're hitting 160 right off the bat. Choice Band, Kukui 180. This Tapu Koko GX, this damage can be very easily, you can change Sky Claw into a one-hit KO on EX Pokemon very easily, and this is something that I see I definitely see getting play. Skyclaw, usually it'll be a 2-shot. You can bring that up to a 1-shot if you absolutely have to with stuff like Kukui and Choice Band once that gets into the format. And you can also, on Fighting Fury Belt, you can hit 160 with Skyclaw with a Kukui and a Fighting Fury Belt if you want to run that. So I just see this attack being wonderful. This is going to be a perfect main attacker in these Magnezone builds. You do have the 2 prize aspect, but especially when you combine this with Rough Seas or Aether Conservation Area, which we'll go over later. This is great, and this is going to be able to sponge a hit more often than not, unless your opponent's running something like a Solgaleo build, which is going to hit 230, or some big nuke that's going to be able to one-shot you. I mean, 170 attacks are fairly common. We'll see that come from a Mega Ray or a really powered up Darkrai or something like that. That can come and hit you pretty quickly, but once you throw in that Aether Conservation Area, your opponent's gonna have to do. I'll just I'm talking so much about Aether Conservation Area. I'll just go and find it real quick just to show you guys what it does. Where did it go? Okay, here. Each player's basic Grass and Lightning Pokemon take 30 less damage from opponents' attacks. So your basic Pokemon, they'll take less damage. So I think this should be played with Tapu Koko GX, and that essentially bumps your HP up to 200. So this is 200 damage attacks, much less common than 170. What you can do is you can take a hit with Tapu Koko. If you have a Float Stone attached to this thing, it's really going to be about modulating the tools, which one you want to use. If you have one with one with a Float Stone is probably going to be best, and then a couple with maybe a Choice Band or a Fighting Fury Belt. But if you have one with a Float Stone, let's say it takes some damage, you then retreat, then you can play another Tapu Koko GX down, bring all of your energy onto that new Tapu Koko GX, Max Potion, Parallel City, do something to get rid of that damaged Tapu Koko GX, and I think this ability will see a lot more play. I think we'll get some support with GX Pokemon that will make this card a lot more playable. I think right now it seems mediocre, but once you think of all of the things that are coming, Choice Band, 160 on Skyclaw, Kukui, 180 on Skyclaw, we get any type of electric support in the format, then this is just going to be wonderful. You pair this with Magnezone, you pair this with Max Elixir, you can Max Elixir onto your Tapu Kokos. This is just going to be very, very good. I see this card being sort of on par with Tapu Lele in terms of playability, which I know is a very bold statement to make at this point. But I'm going to go over Tapu Lele right now, and Tapu Lele is the big card that everyone's talking about, and I'm going to sort of talk about why I think this card won't be as nuts as people are saying. So Tapu Lele GX, 170 HP, Psychic Pokemon. Its ability is Stellar Guidance. They just gave it a fancy name of Wonder Touch. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you can search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, shuffle your deck. It's Jirachi all over again, which we saw in the Plasma Blast set and was very good in the past format, which we had, I think, Worlds 2015 was the, I think that was the Plasma Storm through... it was Plasma Storm through Primal Clash was that format, was it? I think it was Plasma Storm through Primal Clash. Yeah, I'm not sure if I wonder if Roaring Skies was in the format. Yes, Roaring Skies was in the format, but I don't think Mega Ray was seeing. I don't think Mega Ray did a lot at Worlds. Yeah, because I remember people played Shaymins. Yeah, Toad Shaymin was a big deck. Okay, just sort of me thinking back to the old format, but Tapu Lele GX, it's got Wonder Touch, great ability. Its attack is people have been overhyping this attack. I feel like Energy Drive does 20 damage times the number of energy attached to both active Pokemon. It's a good attack. People are comparing it to Next Destiny's Mewtwo. But it's not affected by weakness or resistance, which lowers this attack's playability by quite a lot, I have to say, because by doing this, it loses a lot of its appeal in my book. It's sort of like it's very similar to Shaymin. I'd say it's a little less sort of like a terrible bench sitter than Shaymin, because you do have that energy drive attack. You have a high amount of HP that people can't Lysander and KO this with a low amount of with low damage like they would be able to do with Shaymin. But energy drive, Lugia EX, I hate to say it, has not been a good card. Everyone hyped Lugia when it came out. It's a new Next Destiny's Mewtwo. It's going to be fantastic. It just wasn't. Nothing's weak to colorless. There's no... You can throw Lugia in a couple decks, but it's really only a one-of tech. And its Yveltal is better. It's just better than Lugia. It does that damage. There's nothing that really fits with Lugia in the format right now, except maybe Decidueye if you want to add some damage, but then Tauros is even a better option than that. So I think this attack has been overhyped. The ability is fantastic, but I don't see Tapu Lele GX getting any more expensive than Jirachi was. Tapu Lele GX in its regular art form is probably going to be a $10 card, $10 to $15 card, which is fairly good for just a GX Pokemon card. A $10 card is fairly good. What is Darkrai, like 7 to 10 now in regular art form? I think it's probably going to be about the same. This is not the next Shaymin, guys. I said it was the next Shaymin on my Twitter feed, but after I've looked this over, it's not going to replace Shaymin. It's going to be a one-of in a lot of decks, as Jirachi was. For that format, we didn't have Shaymin. Things were a lot slower. Getting those supporter cards was less important. Often in this format, if you're going to want Ultra Ball, you're going to be using that for the Shaymin, not for the Tapu Lele. It's a fantastic card, don't get me wrong, but Shaymin runs the meta right now. I really don't think people are going to be decreasing their Shaymin counts in order to run more copies of Tapu Lele GX. Maybe one of in each deck. That's probably, maybe one of in just a couple of decks that have the space. I think that would be a fairly good option for Tapu Lele. It's GX attack, Kapu Cure GX. It's going to be changed to Tapu. In Japanese, this is Kapu here. Kapu, I think Kapu Koko is like the Japanese name, but this will be changed to Tapu. It'll be Tapu Cure GX. But the Japanese translation phonetically is Kapu. Restore all HP to 2 of your bench Pokemon. It's not bad. It's a Psychic Energy. Don't really see this being played in anything other than a Psychic deck. But maybe something like Solgaleo Lunala could benefit from this card for its GX attack. But then you're going to want to be using Soul Burst GX. Like, there are better GX attacks than this one. But yeah, Energy Drive, again, it's not affected by weakness, so you can't use it as a Mewtwo counter. If it was affected by weakness, then just forget about it. It's God tier. It would counter Mewtwo. Just splashable. Mega Mewtwo would be completely dead just because of this card. But they made it so it didn't. I'm gonna go over everything else really quickly because I really just want to go over these 3 cards. Lycanroc GX, very good. I don't think it's on the level of Tapu Koko or Tapu Koko and Tapu Lele. Its ability is very good. If Lysander ever gets rotated and we don't get something like a new Guzma supporter that can switch, this will be very good. Claw Swipe, 110 damage, not bad for a fighting and a double colorless, but it is a stage 1. Does only, I feel like, only 200 HP. But as for a stage 1 GX, the standard was sort of set with Gumshoes at 210. So I would have liked to see 210 HP on this. 200 damage attacks are probably becoming more common, so it might be difficult to it might be a little bit easier to one-shot this than something else, but Stage 1 GXs we've seen are doing fairly well with Lurantis. And then it's GX Attack, Death Rogue. The names for this, Bloody Eye for the ability, Death Rogue GX. You know that's not going to you know that's not going to stay in English. This is probably going to be like Fierce Eye and like, I don't know. It's definitely not going to be Death Rogue. I can promise you that in English. But yeah, this card, and it does 50 damage times the number of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It's another nuke. I'd say it's probably better than Tapu Thunder GX, but then again, it's also a stage 1. Tapu Koko is a basic. So, and then we just have a bunch of other cards. The only other thing that Tapu Bulu GX is also sort of like the attacker that Lurantis has needed. Nature's Madness, 120 damage, discard all energy, attach this Pokemon, you can hit 180, which is fairly good. And then Lurantis can bring it all back. Tapu Wild GX does 150 and you heal. And then Horn Attack for 30, not terrible. Will work in Lurantis decks. I feel like Tapu Bulu GX will work with Lurantis, nothing much else. Delmise, another, I think if we ever get anything that works with metal, this is going to be a very good card. It's somewhat reminiscent of the of Regirock, and well, it pretty much has the same ability as Regirock EX, but it's not an EX. It only gives up 1 prize when it's knocked out. It's sort of like, yeah, it's really good. Not an EX, still gives that plus 10 damage, and if any viable metal decks come out, maybe Metagross GX is going to be good, then this is going to be good, Delmise, but other than that, really don't see. Metallurgy is going to become Steelworker probably in English, but so there we go. That's kind of what I wanted to go over. If you guys have any opinions, if your opinions differ than mine, I think I'll just sort of go over everything real quick in like sort of TLDR version. Turtonator GX, Trap Shell, good. Nitro Tank, not as good as you think. Crimson Flame, it's fairly standard, good attack. Will be used in Volcanion decks, not much else. Tapu Koko GX, underrated. This will be much better than people think it will once we get stuff like Choice Band, and Professor Kukui, and people, well, we already have Kukui, but people will quickly realize how good Tapu Koko GX is, and it will, my prediction is that will quickly rise to be maybe a tier 2 deck in combination with either Magnezone or Max Elixir or something like that. People are probably going to be running, I'd say, at least 3 copies of Tapu Koko GX, maybe like some Raikou, some Max Elixir, Magnezone, some sort of things like that. Fairly good. Tapu Koko GX, sort of what Raikou Magnezone needed in order to become tier 1, or tier 2, I don't know. Raikou Magnezone's not very good to begin with. Tapu Lele GX, overrated. Everyone thinks this is going to be god tier. It will not be. It'll be a one of in some decks, if not many decks at all, because why would you run a Tapu Lele if you could just run a Shaymin? Once Shaymin rotates, Tapu Lele will become god tier. Let's just put that out there. In this format right now, Tapu Lele not the best. Once Shaymin rotates, god tier. Lycanroc GX, fairly standard, stage 1 GX. You're able to build a deck around it. It will hang with some good decks. Maybe throw in some Regirock, I guess, if you wanted to. Yeah, but it's sort of mediocre. You could build a deck around it and the deck would work, but it's nothing to write home about. Delmise, good. If we get a metal deck, it'll be good. Tapu Bulu GX, the attacker that Lurantis needed, and this is going to be wonderful for Lurantis to, you don't have to run Vileplume with Lurantis anymore. People will still run Vileplume with Lurantis, but hopefully it won't be too terrible. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. I apologize for the length of this video, but I did feel like I needed to give my thoughts on these next cards. So thank you all for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stick around for more videos.